Hey guys, welcome back to another video of Cross Inside. This is another episode of the series. What if Ash finally got a fucking brain and evolved his starter Pokemon when he got in his previous journey of obviously Sinnoh, Kanto, and other regions? Well, in this series, you can find out what will happen in he if he goes after the Unova League, not going to Kalos, but instead he retake the Kanto gym challenges. So he meets his friends, he meets some enemies, he made some new adventures, memories, and continued his journey. So, if you are new on the channel, please subscribe and turn on the bell icon for notification. And without any more delay, let's begin today's episode. There is a goal I have, which is 10k subscribers. Help me complete it. So let's begin. Now it's real time.
When we last saw our heroes, they were teleported to the faraway Unova region by Dawn's newly captured Abra, who had the intent of using Abra's teleport to get to Saffron City, site of Ash's next gym rematch and Dawn's first Kanto region Pokemon contest. Now Ash and the group intends to meet up with Ash's traveling companion from the Unova region, Sillin. Ash and his friends walk through the streets of Striation. To Ash, it feels like it was only yesterday he had come to the city and earned his first Unova League gym badge, the trio, and defeating two of the three gym leaders, Sillin and his brothers Cress and Chili. There's a place called the Dreamyard near here. It used to be a research facility used to research a substance called Dream Mist, which was released by a Pokemon named Musharna, Ash explains, and Dawn pulls out her Pokédex and looks up Musharna. Musharna, the drowsing Pokemon and the evolved form of Muna. With the mist from its forehead, it can create shapes of things from dreams it has eaten. Embor, use Flame Charge. A female voice calls out, which Ash immediately recognizes and turns around to see the Mega Fire Pig Pokemon surrounded by fire colliding with a Herdier, knocking it out instantly. May then pulls out her Pokédex. Embor, the Mega Fire Pig Pokemon. It has mastered fast and powerful fighting moves. It grows a beard of fire. Whose trainer does that Embor belong to? Max asks Ash. Ash turns around to see the owner of the Embor battling is none other than Bianca, the girl he encountered multiple times during his travels through the Unova region. Bianca then runs over to Ash and says, "Ash, it's you." Embor looks down and Pikachu and says, "Embor," most likely telling the mouse Pokemon it's good to see him after a year. "Ever since you left Unova, I've been battling more and more, and I've won at least 20 of them." And suddenly Bianca is cut off when a cloud appears before her and she falls to the ground asleep, which reveals the sprayer is a Vileplume owned by Max. "What have told you about doing that?" Max asks Vileplume, who simply responds by saying, "Plume." At least an hour later, Bianca wakes up in a Pokemon Center and asks, "Hey, who did that?" "My Vileplume did that, sorry." Max tells her. "No problem, to be honest, that was pretty nice, I enjoy a good nap," Bianca says, and Vileplume is tempted to use another sleep powder, but Max recalls it before it can. "Hey Ash, I just had a great idea, we should have a battle," Bianca says. "Okay, great, I just need to do one thing before I do that," Ash says. Simisage, use Seed Bomb. Sillin, the Striation City gym leader Ash traveled with during his journey, says to the Thorn Monkey Pokemon, who unleashes multiple white orbs from its mouth, colliding with a challenger's Herdier, instantly knocking it out. "I'd recommend trying to improve your recipe for battle," Sillin says to the challenger, who recalls Herdier and exits the gym. "It's good to see you're still in talking about recipes, old friend," Ash says, and Sillin looks up to see him leaning on the door with Pikachu on his shoulder. Ash, Sillin says, recognizes his old traveling companion immediately. Back at the Pokemon Center, Ash explains to Sillin of how him and the group came to be in the Unova region and of his battle he plans to have with Bianca at the Battle Club. "A battle with Bianca, this should be interesting, but I must warn you, Ash, her Pokemon have gotten stronger and she's improved her battle strategies since you last saw her," Sillin explains to Ash. "Well, so have I. Since then I've already got a good strategy to beat her," Ash replies. Ash then stands up. "It's time," he says, and begins to walk over to the Battle Club with Sillin in tow. Soon Ash and Bianca find each other on opposite sides of the Battle Club's battleground. The battle between Ash and Bianca is about to begin. Each trainer will have the usage of 4 Pokémon. Each substitutions are allowed on both sides. Begin. Don George announces. Escavalier, let's go. Bianca announces and throws a Pokeball, which unleashes the cavalry Pokémon, who responds with an Escavalier. May then pulls out her Pokédex. Escavalier, the cavalry Pokémon and the evolved form of Carablast. They fly around at high speed, striking with their pointed spears. Even when in trouble, they face opponents bravely. Elekid, I choose you. Ash says, throwing a Pokeball, which unleashes the electric Pokémon, who responds with an Eli. Bianca then pulls out her Pokédex, curious about this Pokémon. Elekid, the electric Pokémon. A weak electric current flows between its horns. Sticking a hand there shocks the unwary. Escavalier use Fury attack. Bianca says, and the cavalry Pokémon's lances glow white and repeatedly jabs Elekid with them, but the electric Pokémon simply picks himself afterwards, not planning on giving up just yet. Elekid, Thunder Wave. Ash says to Elekid, who unleashes electricity onto Axelgar, leaving it paralyzed. That was a good move Ash made by having Elekid use Thunder Wave to paralyze Axelgar. Now it will be tougher for it to move, Sillin remarks. Escavalier use Energy Ball. Bianca says to the cavalry Pokémon, but does not use the attack due to the fact that it is paralyzed and cannot move. Fire Punch. Ash says to Elekid, whose hand becomes surrounded by fire, and punches Escavalier, knocking the cavalry Pokémon with one hit. Escavalier is unable to battle the winner as Elekid. Don George announces, and Elekid smiles and begins to glow as everyone watches in awe. Elekid's evolving, Ash says, knowing what this is after seeing it many times. Soon Elekid begins to grow in size and his horns turn into antennas, and soon the glowing halts and show him in his new form as an Electabuzz, who yells out, Electa. Bianca then pulls out her Pokédex. Electabuzz, the Thunderbolt Pokémon and the evolved form of Elekid. It windmills its arms to slightly boost its punches. Foes have been known to escape in the meantime. Emboar, let's go. Bianca says, sending out the Mega Fire Pig Pokémon, who says, Emboar. Even with his newly evolved Electabuzz, can Ash defeat his old rival Bianca? Stay tuned and find out. Ash's 4-on-4 battle with Bianca began to regressive start when Ash's Elekid defeating Bianca's Escavalier and evolved into Electabuzz afterwards, but will that be enough to defeat Bianca and the rest of her Pokémon? Electabuzz use Thunder. Ash says to the electric Pokémon, and at his trainer's command Electabuzz begins to generate electricity from its horns on its head and fires a blast of electricity at Emboar, reducing his health severely. Ash's Electabuzz is one strong Pokémon at best. Sillin says, observing the match carefully, he really is. He was able to beat a Gyarados when he was still an Elekid with only a few attacks. Sillin, Max replies to the Pokémon connoisseur's statement. Emboar return. Bianca says, trying to be smart about this, now Cinccino come out. Bianca says, unleashing the Scarf Pokémon, who yells out, Cinccino. May then pulls out her Pokédex. Cinccino, the Scarf Pokémon and the evolved form of Minccino. Their white fur is coated in a special oil that makes it easy for them to deflect attacks. Electabuzz return. Ash says, recalling Electabuzz to his Pokeball, and pulls out another, Gabite, I choose you. He says, unleashing the cave Pokémon, who yells out, Gabite. Bianca then pulls out her Pokédex. Gabite, the cave Pokémon and the evolved form of Gible. It loves sparkly things. It seeks treasures in caves and hoards the loot into its nest. A dragon-type Iris would love that, Sillin says, knowing about Iris's love for dragon-type Pokémon. Cinccino use Attract. Bianca says to the Scarf Pokémon, who sends off an array of hearts at Gabite, which hits him but has no effect. What Attract didn't work? Bianca says. It didn't work because my Gabite is male, so is Cinccino. Ash points out the bubbly blonde. Dragon Rush. Ash says to Gabite, who at his trainer's command charges at Cinccino with great speed, and as he does his head glows blue and his body is enveloped and collides with Cinccino, knocking him out with one shot. Cinccino is unable to battle the winner as Gabite, Don George declares. Cinchino return. Bianca says a bit ticked. Bianca is looking a little aggravated. Sillin says, what will she do next? She only has 2 Pokemon left. Dawn asks. Mienshao come out. She says unleashing the martial arts Pokemon. Mei then pulls out her Pokédex curious about this Pokemon. Mienshao the martial arts Pokemon. It wields the fur on its arms like a whip. Its arm attacks come with such rapidity that they cannot even be seen. Use Aura Sphere. Bianca says to Mienshao, who generates a sphere of aura and throws it at Gabite, which does significant damage to the cave Pokemon but not too much. Gabite use Dragon Pulse. Ash says to Gabite, who at his trainer's command generates a teal sphere and unleashes it upon Mienshao, which knocks it out in 1 hit. Mienshao is unable to battle the winner as Gabite. Don George declares, EMBOAR use Flame Charge. Bianca yells out unleashing Emboar, whose body becomes surrounded by fire and soon charges at Gabite. Gabite use Dig. Ash says and the cave Pokemon burrows underground and Emboar stops in his tracks. Where is he? Bianca asks, thinking where Gabite is. Suddenly the cave Pokemon comes up and attacks Emboar and the Mega Fire Pig Pokemon falls down from the attack fainted. Emboar is unable to battle the winner as Gabite. The winner of this battle is Ash. Don George declares. Emboar return. Bianca says frustrated at the fact she lost the match and Ash only had to use 2 of his Pokemon to beat 4 of hers and walks off angrily. Back in Kanto, Team Rocket spies Annie and Oakley report back to Giovanni. Sir, we've had no signs of the boy, it's like he's vanished off the face of Kanto, Annie says to her boss. Strange, report back when you have something. He replies, sir. The two say together as they end the conversation with Giovanni. Back in Unova, Ash talks to Professor Juniper over a video phone. I thought you were in the Unova region, Ash. I could hear you scream all the way from Nuvma Town, she says to the young trainer from Pallet Town. Yeah, I've gotta work on how loud I talk, so anyway I'm sending over Audino and Blitzel until I can find a way to get back to Kanto, Ash says to the Pokemon professor. Of course Ash, if you catch any more just send them over here, Juniper says, and Ash soon transports the 2 Pokemon over to her research lab for safekeeping. Piplup use Whirlpool. Don says to the penguin Pokemon, whose body glows bluish-white, and opens his beak and a huge whirlpool begins to form and throws it in the air. Now Mamoswine Ice Shard. Don says to the twin tusk Pokemon, who generates a glowing light blue ball of ice and launches it at the whirlpool, freezing it. Now Quilava use Flamethrower. Don says, and the volcano Pokemon breathes fire on to the ice whirlpool, turning it to water. Now Abra use Psychic. Don says to the Psy Pokemon, who uses Psychic to hold the water. Now Lopunny use Ice Beam. Don says to the rabbit Pokemon, who freezes the water. Now Togekiss use Sky Attack. Don says to the Jubilee Pokemon, whose body surrounded by white aura, and it flies at the frozen water and starts doing this multiple times until the ice is turned into a sphere of ice, which Abra then gently puts on the ground and Lopunny freezes it to keep it in place. Done. Got the whole thing on video. Max says, holding a video camera recording the whole performance. You'll do great, Don. May says to her friend from the Sinnoh region. Let's just hope I can do an appeal like that with just 1 Pokemon. Don says, a little unsure. You can. And you will, May says, leaning in on Don and kissing her on the cheek, causing Don's cheeks to turn red. Just try your best, she says, and walks off, blowing a kiss her way, leaving Don a bit embarrassed by the red cheeks and love struck. Well, Sillin, we have to be on our way, Ash says to his old friend. It's been good seeing you, Ash, also, Sillin remarks. Pika Pie. Pikachu replies. Wait, Ash. Bianca runs towards him. I want to come with you guys, she says. Wait, does your dad know? Ash asks. My mom knows and she'll tell him when I tell her when we're far enough away, she replies. I guess why would you want to come with us? Ash asks. I want to see what other regions like Kanto is like up close and personal. Bianca explains with big eyes. Okay, but we're not going back to Kanto just yet, Ash says. Yeah, I mean we have 2 weeks before my contest in Saffron, so I think we can enjoy Unova for that long, and when it's almost time we'll catch a plane ride. She says, thinking if they use Abra's teleport they could end up somewhere farther like Russia or maybe even the moon. Okay then, let's go then. She says, running off at fast rates towards the road. That's Bianca for you, Ash remarks. Our heroes now enjoy some time off in the wondrous faraway Unova region, where they plan on visiting the beautiful sights before returning to Kanto for Ash's third Kanto rematch and Dawn's first Pokemon contest. According to the map, we're on Route 3 inches, Ash says, looking at his Pokegear's map. Ash then spots a Purloin ahead licking its paw, only this one was different than a normal one, it was a shiny one. Ash knew this due to its colors being gray, blue and purple instead of normal purple and pink. Everyone get down, he says, and they duck down behind a bush. May pulls out her Pokédex, curious about the unfamiliar Pokémon. Purloin, the devious Pokémon. They steal from people for fun, but their victims can't help but forgive them. Their deceptively cute act is perfect. It sounds like a thief. Dawn comments on the Pokédex entry. And it's a shiny Pokémon. Max says, seeing its color is different than the Pokédex image. I like a challenge cause I'm going to catch. Ash says, pulling out a Pokeball ready to catch the shiny devious Pokémon. Pikachu, let's make this fast, use Thunder Wave. Ash says to Pikachu, who fires a jolt of electricity at Purloin, but the devious Pokémon notices this and jumps out of the way. Instead, the jolt hits a passing Pidove, which paralyzes the pigeon Pokémon. Sorry about that, Ash says to the Pidove, and May then pulls out a Pokeball and throws it on the paralyzed pigeon Pokémon, and the Pokeball then wobbles and blinks several times and halts, then sparkles fly off the Pokeball, confirming its capture. Yes, May says, in joy of catching her first Unova Pokémon, picking up the Pokeball, which shrinks due to her having 6 Pokémon on her current team. Purloin got away. Ash says, a little disappointed by this, but not that much, knowing this has happened before and is used to it. Suddenly a flock of Pidove arrives, angered by this, and Ash smiles and pulls out a Pokeball, unleashing his Torkoal, who unleashes smoke from his back and nostrils and yells, Torkoal. Torkoal, use smokescreen. Ash says to the coal Pokemon, who obeys and unleashes a black smoke, which surrounds everyone. Soon the Pidove use Gust to remove the smoke and find that the gang is gone. That was close, Max says to his friends, who are now hiding next to a tree. This one looks amazing. Bianca says, pulling out her Pokédex. Torkoal, the coal Pokemon. It burns coal inside its shell for energy. It blows out black soot if it is endangered. Now that that's taken care of, I'm going to get back to finding that Purloin. Ash says, pulling out some Pokemon food, putting in a bowl and pouring it in, and hiding in the bushes ready to catch it if it comes. I just need to wait, then I'll be able to catch it, Ash says, holding a Pokeball and ready to use it to capture the shiny Pokemon whenever it might come to the food bowl. And Ash then sits there for the next 20 minutes but stays there, determined to catch Purloin, not only because of its color but because of its reflexes, which would help him in battle. Suddenly the same Purloin returns and goes into the bowl and begins eating the food. Ash notices this. All right, to make my move, he says in his thoughts, and pulls out a Pokeball ready to catch the devious Pokemon. Finally, I hoped you'd show up soon, a man says, wearing a black vest and padding. Sir, I've located the target, it's here. The man says over his radio. Excellent, keep it here, I'll be there shortly. A female voice says over the radio. I know that voice, Ash says, immediately recognizing it as Pokemon Hunter J. You're going for a high price, kitty, Jay's henchman says when he is hit by a green cloud of dust and falls down asleep, and reveals it to be Ash's Meganium using sleep powder. Come on, let's get you out of here, Ash says to Purloin, who nods in a yes motion and follows him so they can get away from Hunter J before she gets there. Okay, I phoned the local officer Jenny, she already picked him up, Ash says, looking around, seeing none of the Jay's crew or Jay, so the group continues to walk with Purloin, who keeps close to Ash. So Ash, what's Hunter Jay like? Bianca asks, not knowing who is Jay was until now. She's one of the worst I've met, maybe even at the top of the list. Ash says. Instead of just catching them in cages, she turns them to stone with a cannon of hers and keeps them in a case until they're sold, Ash says to Bianca with such contempt for the Pokemon hunter. She tried to steal Pikachu and Team Rocket's Meowth when we were in Sinnoh, Dawn says, remembering the hunter from 3 years ago. Suddenly a deerling jumps out in its winter form, brushing itself. Oh, thank Arceus, it's just a deerling, Ash says, and Dawn pulls out her Pokédex, curious about the unfamiliar Pokemon. Deerling, the season Pokemon. The turning of the seasons changes the color and scent of this Pokemon's fur. People use it to mark the seasons. I'm catching this one for sure, Ash says, pulling out a Pokeball and throws it in the air, unleashing Torkoal, who unleashes smoke from its back and nose and yells, Torkoal. Alright Torkoal, use flamethrower, Ash says to the coal Pokemon, who unleashes a stream of fire onto the season Pokemon, weakening it, and he then pulls out a Pokeball. Now go Pokeball, he says, throwing the Pokeball on Deerling, which absorbs it and falls on the ground and wobbles and blinks 3 times and halts, and sparkles fly off, confirming its capture, and then shrinks down. Yeah, I caught a Deerling, Ash says, holding up the Pokeball in victory when Purloin digs a Pokeball out of the trainer's backpack and presses down on the button, which absorbs the devious Pokemon, and sparkles fly off, conforming its capture, and shrinks down. Did Purloin just do what I think it did? Bianca asks. Pika Pie. Pikachu says, confused. I guess it must like you since it wanted to go in the Pokeball willingly, Max says, knowing this kind of stuff. Ash. Dawn says, and points down the mountain, and he sees several black vans with several of Jay's henchmen, most likely looking for Purloin. Great, they're gonna be looking for Purloin, so I need to wait until it's clear to let it out in the open, Ash says to his friends. Soon the gang makes their way to the nearest Pokemon Center, and Ash sends Deerling and Electabuzz over to Professor Juniper's lab to make room for Purloin, but until it was safe not to let it out anywhere, Hunter Jay could try and make a grab for it. I've actually heard of Hunter Jay from Professor Oak. He said he spotted her in Kanto, Professor Juniper says over the phone. I've dealt with her before, she's awful. What I wouldn't give to get my hands around her throat or turn her to stone with her own cannon, Ash says, having so much contempt for the Pokemon hunter and her methods. She can't run from the law forever, Ash. Eventually she'll slip up, Juniper says, trying to reassure the young trainer. I know, but not anytime soon. I know her too well, Professor, Ash says, remembering all those times Jay was able to escape, and was even able to escape death the last time he saw the ruthless Pokemon hunter. Ash, what's that Pokemon? May asks, pointing to a painting of a black dragon Pokemon with a generator-like tail and red eyes. That's Zekrom, he replies, having met the Pokemon before. Zekrom. May asks, pulling out her Pokédex and typing the Pokemon's name in. Zekrom, the deep black Pokemon. Concealing itself in lightning clouds, it flies throughout the Unova region. It creates electricity in its tail. Zekrom is one of the legendary Pokemon. It's a dragon and electric-type Pokemon, Ash explains to the group. Zekrom also played a part in Unova's creation, Ash continues on. You see, according to mythology, Unova was created by uniting the warring peoples of the land by twin heroes, Ash explains to the group, telling them the origins of the Unova region. To do this, they used a single dragon. However, the brothers started arguing over something each sought in life. The older brother sought truth and the younger brother sought ideals. Their argument split the single dragon into Reshiram, who sided with the older brother, and Zekrom, who sided with the younger brother, Ash continues on. The two dragons begin battling, destroying the Unova region with their fire and lightning powers before disappearing, but really they had been transformed into stone orbs. Reshiram was transformed into the light stone and Zekrom turned into the dark stone, Ash continues on. Unova was eventually rebuilt though, and here we are today, Ash says, finishing the story. So how do you know all this? Dawn asks. I've met Reshiram and Zekrom when I traveled through here, Dawn. They're just as amazing in person than in legend, Ash says, remembering meeting Zekrom in Nuvma town, then in Eindhoek town. The following morning, Ash and his friends take leave from the Pokémon Center and approach the entrance to Nacreine City, where Ash acquired his second Unova League gym badge from Lenora, the city's gym leader. "This is Nacreine City, guys, so let's go," Ash says, running into the city ready to battle anyone who challenges him there. Our heroes are now on high alert with the return of Pokémon Hunter J, but this shall not stop them from enjoying battling. Stay tuned. When we last met our heroes, they learned that the ruthless Pokémon Hunter J had survived her ship crash in the Sinnoh region years ago and is now in the Unova region, where our heroes are currently touring, but this does not stop them from entering Nacreine City, the place where Ash won his second Unova gym badge. "Welcome to Nacreine City, guys," Ash says as his friends admire the many colorful buildings around the city. "Why are all the buildings different colors?" May asks Ash. "It's called the City of Art by some people. It was established in restored storehouses built about 100 years ago," Ash explains to the coordinator from Hoenn. "The gym here is run by Lenora. The gym is located inside the museum here," Ash explains, remembering the gym from over 2 years ago when he came here to earn his second gym badge but lost but won in a rematch against the normal type gym leader. Meanwhile, Hunter J flies in her new airship in the skies of Unova when one of her henchmen appears on the screen. "Sir, we have yet to locate the purloin," the henchman reports. "You better find it soon. My clients won't be happy we lose this," she says. "Yes, sir," he says. Unknown to her, Ash looks at the airship from his binoculars. "She's got a new ship. Where does she get this stuff?" Ash asks himself. "Ash, what are you looking at?" Dawn asks, and he hands the binoculars over to her and she sees what he saw, Hunter J's ship. She says, recognizing it. "Last time I heard of it, that thing it blew at the bottom of Lake Verity, looks like she got a new one," Ash says and watches as the airship cloaks invisible to the human eye. "I need to get her out of Unova somehow," Ash says to his friends. "How are you gonna yell out and tell her you're here and you caught purloin?" Bianca asks. "No, but I need to find some way to catch her. She needs to pay for what she's done to Pokemon," Ash says, having much contempt for the Pokemon hunter hating her work because of his love for Pokemon. Pikachu says who has as much contempt for the hunter for all the things she has done, including trying to capture Pikachu. Meanwhile, in the Nacreine City Museum, in a display case, a dark stone begins to glow bright blue. Apparently have had heard Ash from the distance about him intending to find a way to bring down Hunter J and make her pay for what she has done to Pokemon. Suddenly Lenora walks by and looks to see the dark stone, but it is now no longer glowing. It defiantly looks like the real dark stone. "I'll give you that," the normal type gym leader says, commenting on the texture and condition of the stone, and she walks away and it continues to glow. "Purloin, use Fury Swipes," Ash says to his newly captured Pokemon, whose claws grow and glow white, and slices up a piece of wood. "That was good, Purloin," Ash says, congratulated Purloin on how flawlessly the wood was cut. "Are you sure it's safe to have Purloin out while Hunter J could be out there watching?" May asks. "She wouldn't do it in a place filled with people. She's too smart. She'll try and strike while we're out in the forest and vulnerable to attack," Ash says, knowing Hunter J too well. "Ash, there's something on the TV you might want to see," Max says, rushing out of the Pokémon Center, and they go inside. Breaking news in Unova. There have been reports of Pokémon Hunter, who is known only as J, has been spotted in the Unova region, a reporter says on the TV. "That's right, Hunter J was presumed dead 3 years ago after her airship crashed into Lake Verity in the Sinnoh region," another reporter says. "J was wanted by the authorities there and had committed a series of Pokémon kidnappings," she continues on, showing clips of J capturing Pokémon. "Just moments ago a hiker sent us this picture of J's new airship in the sky," the first reporter says, showing a snapshot of J's airship. According to what he told the local police, he said the ship just turned invisible after that. The female one says, "All law enforcement agencies in the region have been alerted to her presence or searching for her," the female reporter continues. "At least people know who she is now," Max says, watching the news channel. In other news, police made an arrest of someone working for Hunter J. During the interrogating, he says he was, quote, "I just got this with her, I don't know anything," but said he was tasked with capturing a shiny purloin, but when he attempted, a cloud of green dust came on him and he fell unconscious. The female reporter continues. "Whenever I encountered Jay, her henchman would get arrested while she makes her getaway." Ash says, remembering the times when Jay's henchman would get arrested instead of her and she escapes. "I wonder if she'll remember you." Max says, "She will. She would never forget me, and neither would I with her." Ash says, having much contempt for her. In other news, the Nacreine City Museum has opened up a new exhibit today dedicating the legendary Pokémon of Unova, the female reporter says. "That sounds cool," Max says. "Then let's go check it out," Ash says, and the group goes off to see the new exhibit in the museum. On Hunter J's airship, one of her henchmen enter the command bridge. "Sir, we found out where Purloin may have gone," he says, and uploads a video of Ash training Purloin by having it use her claws to cut the wood, and Jay clenches her fists in anger. "Not him again," she says, recognizing Ash as he has foiled several of her plans in the past. "It seems he has already captured Purloin, sir," the henchman says, and Jay simply looks at the screen and smiles. "Wait until him and his friends are alone and then we'll strike," Jay says. "Yes, sir," he says. Back at the Nacreine City Museum, Ash and the gang follow into the crowd of people to see the new exhibit dedicated to the legendary Pokémon of the Unova region. And here we have the display for the legendary Kami Trio. A tour guide says, showing them a painting of the Kami Trio Tornadus, Thundurus and Landorus along with several other items. "Whoa, they look amazing," Dawn says, admiring the legendary Pokémon. "They are take it from someone who's seen them up close," Ash says to the coordinator from Sinnoh, having encountered the trio on Milos Island during his journey 2 years ago, in which Team Rocket attempted to steal the trio but thwarted. And this display is dedicated to the legendary dragon Pokémon of Ideals Zekrom, the tour guide says, showing them a display with several things including a painting of Zekrom and the dark stone inside a case. "It's the dark stone," Ash says, knowing what that is. "Actually, Ash, it's not the real one, merely a replica," a man says, and the group looks behind and Ash recognizes the man as Haas, Lenora's husband and vice curator of the Nacreine Museum. "Maybe Haas, but you've said that before about Yamask mask and it turned out to be a Yamask," Ash says, remembering that night 2 years ago. "That is correct, but this one is defiantly a replica," Haas replies, pretty sure the dark stone in the case is replica. Our next display is dedicated to the legendary Musketeers, as the tour guide continues on when suddenly the stone begins to glow in front of everyone. "I have been wrong before, of course," Haas says, and the stone breaks out of the case and flies out of the building, and Ash and Pikachu chase after it. "I need to make sure these things are replicas first," Haas says, ashamed that this has happened again. Ash and Pikachu follows the stone all the way out into the lush pinwheel forest, the place where Ash captured his Leavanny when he was a Sewaddle over 2 years ago, and he goes over to the dark stone which glows ever so blue. "The great dark stone," Ash says, admiring the sight of the glowing stone in front of him. Soon electricity begins to form around the dark stone, and Ash steps back a few inches as a veil of blue energy surrounds something, and inside is a large shadow, and the veil drops, revealing the legendary Pokémon Zekrom within, whose eyes open and looks down at Ash and Pikachu and roars at them. "The legendary Pokémon Zekrom, why have you appeared before me?" Ash asks the legendary dragon, an electric Pokémon, who looks at him silently, and Ash realizes something. "You heard me talking about Jay, didn't you?" Ash asks, and Zekrom just looks at him, apparently giving Ash his answer. "Those are one of my ideals, Zekrom. One of my others are to become a Pokémon Master," Ash says respectfully to the legendary Pokémon, whose eyes widen at hearing that. "So does this mean?" Ash asks, and instantly realizes what's happening and smiles. Soon Ash arrives back to the group. "How is with Haas, Ash? What happened?" May asks, "Where's the stone?" Haas asks, and Ash pulls out a shrunken poke ball, giving Haas his answer. "What? You captured Zekrom?" Haas asks, surprised by this. Zekrom didn't really put up a fight, it didn't even try and battle me, it just let me capture it, Ash explains. Ash's ideals compelled Zekrom to allow itself to be captured. A voice comes out and they look to see it is Lenora, leader of the Nacreine City Gym. Lenora, Hawes says to his wife who had just returned from somewhere. Zekrom believes firmly in ideals, it was yours that brought it out of hibernation in its dark stone form and it was the reason Zekrom allowed you to capture it, Lenora explains to the young trainer. I knew that, Lenora. I've encountered Zekrom before, I've heard the legends about him and Reshiram. Ash replies and looks at the Pokeball. Wait until Professor Oak or Juniper hears this, Max says to his friend, amazed by what Pokemon Ash just acquired. I know everyone I know will be surprised. I can only imagine the face Trip might have when he sees this, Ash says. Little does Ash know Hunter J is watching the whole conversation from her airship and she smiles. This should be a fun hunt, she says, intending on capturing Zekrom. Ash has achieved great with his capture of the legendary Pokemon Zekrom, but at the same time the ruthless Pokemon Hunter J now intends to capture the legendary dragon Pokemon. Will she succeed? Stay tuned and find out. The last time we saw our heroes they had entered Nacreine City and their Ash's ideals awakened the legendary Pokemon of ideals Zekrom form its hibernative state and allowed Ash to capture it, but now Hunter J intends to capture the mighty Pokemon for herself. The question is, will she be successful? Somewhere back in Kanto in a prison facility in the yard, Jesse, James and Meowth stand outdusty in the sun with other inmates of the prison. So when is the boss sending someone in to break us out? Meowth asks. It's been 3 months, I doubt he's sending anyone to help get us out, James says, knowing Giovanni won't risk being found and incarcerated. Jesse. James, Butch says, walking in. All right, listen Biff, we don't have time for yours and Cassidy's insults, Meowth says. It's Butch. He yells and a guard notices this and he just lowers his voice. Listen, usually me and Cassidy are able to escape out of these hellholes no problem, but this one is a little tougher, so we might need your help getting out of this one, Butch explains quietly. Are you saying you guys actually need our help? Jesse asks, surprised. Yes, but we're doing this as fellow Rockets. Remember that we're not friends. Cassidy told me to tell you that, Jesse, Butch explains. So when are planning the breakout? Meowth asks. Tonight we get out of here and back to HQ, Butch explains. Hey. What you four talking about? A guard asks, holding his gun. And nothing. Nothing, Butch says, and the guard walks off. Let's talk about this somewhere more private, Butch says and walks off. Back in Unova it is around 8 o'clock in the morning and Ash sits in the Pokemon Center with Pikachu thinking about something. Ash, you look like you have something on your mind. Dawn asks. I do, Dawn, I'm thinking about Hunter J. Ash responds, worried she might try and snatch Zekrom. She asks. No, not that, I mean like who is she? Her past. How she became a Pokemon hunter. Those questions were never answered when she crashed. Ash explains. The million-dollar question is, how the hell did she survive a crash like the one you described? May asks and Ash's face turns serious. I don't, May, but I'm gonna find out, Ash replies. How? It's not like you can just ask her. Max asks. You're right, I can't, but maybe one of henchmen can tell me next time I see on C1. I'll ask one, Ash says, thinking that one her henchman could shed some light on Jay's past. Soon the group enters the lush pinwheel forest, which is filled with trees and vines which goes on for miles and miles. Alright, for all we know Hunter J is following us, so watch out for her and any of her guys, Ash says to the group, and they continue on into the beautiful forest. This place is beautiful, May says. It is, I've been here before, it's where I caught Lavani, Ash says and looks around the place admiring the beauty of the place, and several Cotoni flee by. Whoa, what are those Pokemon? Dawn asks and she pulls out her Pokédex. Cotoni, the cotton puff Pokemon. They go wherever the wind takes them. On rainy days, their bodies are heavier, so they take shelter beneath big trees. I'm catching one of those for sure, Ash says and pulls out a Pokeball intending on capturing the cotton puff Pokemon. Pikachu Thunder Wave. Ash says to Pikachu, who charges up electricity and is about to hit Kadoni when it ducks from the jolt and charges up a ball of greenish-blue energy and fires at Pikachu, but he dodges. It's Energy Ball. Ash says, recognizing that move having seen it before. It was powerful Energy Ball alright. Max says, and Kadoni unleashes a Razor Leaf attack on them, but Pikachu fires a Thunderbolt attack on Kadoni, causing the Cotton Puff Pokemon to fall to the ground paralyzed. Now go Poke Ball. Ash says and throws the Poke Ball at the paralyzed grass and fighting Pokemon, which opens and absorbs Kadoni, then goes to the ground and wobbles and blinks several times, and it halts and sparkles fly off, confirming its capture, and shrinks down since Ash has 6 Pokemon on his team. I caught a Kadoni. Ash says. Pika Pie. Pikachu says happy at the capture of a new Pokemon, and he places it in his pocket, and soon Ash hears the sounds of tires in the distance. We're about to have company. Ash says, knowing that is probably Hunter J's men coming after them for Zekrom, most likely because she had witnessed Ash capturing the deep dark Pokemon and had lost interest in Purloin. Let's get out here fast. Ash says, and they go climb up into the trees to hide, and soon Hunter J's men come in driving in an armored vehicle, and one of them exits. Where have those kids gone? He asks himself, and from the tree Ash unleashes Zekrom from its Pokeball, and Ash gets on top of Zekrom along with the others and go up into the sky and fly above Pinwheel Forest, and Jay's henchmen are completely oblivious to the whole thing. Let's just try and get out of here before Jay finds us, Ash says. Suddenly before Zekrom is a Salamence being ridden by none other than Hunter J. So it seems you made it out of that ship crash okay. Dawn says, having contempt for the Pokemon Hunter. I'm lucky to be alive after Team Galactic betrayed me, but I had an escape capsule put there just for that kind of situation. Jay explains, and she readies her cannon. I've come for Zekrom, so if you're smart, get off now. She says. No way, I'm not letting you hurt another Pokemon. Ash says, and when Hunter J fires and Zekrom flies up dodging it, Zekrom used Dragon Breath. Ash says to the deep dark Pokemon, who charges up pale purple fire and unleashes it, but Salamence flies out of the way and fires a Dragon Pulse attack, but Zekrom dodges it as well. We've got to disappear somehow. Ash says, and Jay fires a beam from her cannon but misses, and Zekrom opens its mouth and a blue orb of energy appears and fires it at Salamence, causing damage. Whoa, that was Dragon Rage. Max says. Dawn, use Abra's teleport to get us out of here. Ash says to Dawn. But who knows where Abra will teleport us to. Dawn says, and Salamence unleashes a flamethrower attack which Zekrom dodges. Okay, I think that's a good idea. Dawn says, and unleashes Abra from its Pokeball. Abra used teleport. Dawn says, and Abra glows multicolored, and Zekrom and the gang teleports away, leaving Jay stunned and angry at the loss of her prey. Soon the gang riding Zekrom reappears outside of Pinwheel Forest. Where are we now? Max asks, and Ash checks the location on his Pokegear. We're near Castilia City. Zekrom return. Ash says, recalling Zekrom to its Pokeball. That lady is even worse in person than how you described her. Max says, concerning the Pokemon Hunter and her methods. We need to keep a low profile until we get out of Unova, then we'll be safe from Jay. Ash says, and they continue walking up the road and stop to find a huge Poke Mart. It's a Poke Mart. May says, knowing what that place is. Good, we'll be able to stock up on supplies here. I'm almost out of Pokeballs. Ash says. Let's just hope we don't run into you-know-who Pikachu. Ash says. Pika Pie. He says in agreement. Alright everyone, now if we go in and a girl with bushy purple asks you to come into her Kanaisu's booth instead of one that has a long line, just ignore her or walk away. Ash explains to the group, and they go into the Poke Mart to stock up on supplies. Back in Kanto at the prison facility during the night time where Team Rocket is, they all lay on their beds in their cell, and someone knocks on their cell's doors, and it is a guard. Lights out, Rockets. He says, and the lights go off and they all smile with him gone, and the guard goes near Cassidy and Butch's cell to find it empty. What the hell? He asks, and is suddenly hit by a rolling kick attack which reveals to be Butch's Hitmontop, which he just recovered, and Butch uses a pair of keys and unlocks Jessie. James and Meowth's cell and they exit it. I got to say, Meowth, it was smart to swipe the guard's key while he wasn't looking. Why didn't you think of it before? Butch asks. Didn't think of it, to be honest. Meowth replies while feeling a bit stupid for not thinking of that, and Cassidy comes in. Domino is outside with our getaway. She says, let's go. Butch says, and they exit the facility and get into the truck and drive off into the night. If Pokemon Hunter J wasn't enough for Ash to worry about, now Team Rocket has made a daring escape from prison. The question is, what will happen next? Stay tuned and find out.
Hey guys, if you like this video, please do one thing, like it, share it with those friends who love to watch Pokemon or any fanfic of anime which are related to specific genres. So please do that and turn on the bell icon for notification of these any other series which are still ongoing on channel. Thanks for watching.